Hey guys, we're going to go over Chapter 8, the final boss, which is Stage 14 on normal mode. On hard mode, it is Stage 14 as well, but on expert mode, it is Stage 13. Another thing to consider is this is not the final chapter anymore. It used to be, but normal mode now has a Chapter 9, and I would just quickly like to say, if you do complete this final boss and you want to move on to Chapter 9, be aware that this is significantly harder. The power step up is colossal. 600k is the recommended BP, versus the just under 200k of the previous final boss. So keep that in mind. Another thing to keep in mind is this final stage of Chapter 8 is a big step up from the rest of the campaign as well. So if you've been progressing through the game and you've hit a brick wall on Chapter 8, you may need to spend some time gearing up, promoting heroes, getting them to 6-star. It is a lot harder on this stage than the rest of the campaign. When I was initially progressing in this game, I blew straight through to here pretty quickly and then got stuck on here for at least a week, and I just had to progress my account a lot before I could do it. So just a quick disclaimer there on the difficulties of the different stages. So with that out of the way, we're going to play on expert difficulty using epic heroes and giving you suggestions on placement strategies, other heroes that you can use, and generally how to run this. Initially, I will do it without worrying about this 6-hero team limit. That way it'll be more relevant for players in normal and hard mode. And then I'll do a second clearance using only 6 heroes to show you how to clear it on the expert difficulty. So before we pick our team, let's have a look at the details of this stage. There is a very slight difference in the enemies across the difficulties. There is one less enemy type here, but that doesn't really matter. There are 4 key enemies to consider. The first is, of course, Calypso, a boss that will spawn in the top left corner, and she will patrol around the map in this kind of pattern. And this is actually incredibly important to pay attention to. Her pathing is really key to the strategy that you will use to clear this. So pay attention to that. I'll go over some of the timings on when to be aware and when to do certain things, because her pathing is incredibly important. I'll go over her skills in a second. The other people to keep in mind, the main enemies to keep in mind, are the Priests of Rain, the Priests of Thunder, and the Egon's Believer. The Egon's Dependent are another thing to consider. These are flying enemies. They come from the top here. They fly out and they kind of snake around the map. I believe it's something like this pattern, but we'll see in a second. You do need to have ranged heroes to deal with this, but it's not super hard to deal with this. The rest of the enemies are the bigger deal. Dealing with Calypso's massive burst damage is a big problem. The Egon's Believers will spawn from these portals in the bottom left and the bottom right, and when they jump into the water and come out the other side, as you probably know, they advance and become much stronger enemies that are significantly harder to deal with. Next to discuss are the Priests of Rain. One will spawn over here on this side, will walk up and will channel at this glyph in the top right side, in the top right corner. When they're channeling, they are casting a Rain of Curse, and it is constantly reducing the hero's defense and magic resistance, but it has a second effect as well, Priest of Thunder. So they basically cast a lightning strike on the last placed hero, which is really damaging, but you can tank it not too bad. The problem is, while there is acid rain being channeled by a Priest of Rain in this corner, the Priests of Thunder, their Thunder Caller ability will have like a big plus splash attack hitting adjacent compass point tiles, so you do need to be very mindful of that. The Priests of Thunder will do a massive amount of damage if you are allowing the Priests of Rain to channel. So there's different strategies you can adopt to handle this in different ways, and we'll go over that. But finally, Calypso. Let's discuss Calypso a little bit more. She spawns in the top left and she paths around the map roughly in this pattern. She does snake around, but there are different milestones where she pauses. And most importantly, if you pay attention, there are different areas on the map where she fires a lightning arrow. It is not just random, it is actually a fixed point. I think if you block her at different points, it may adjust it, but in the strategies I use, I don't block her until later on. So you can be very aware of when she does the lightning arrows, and that is the biggest key to success. I think the first one is around here, the second one is around here. We'll go over it in the actual run. The rest of her attacks are strong, but you can survive these. It's the lightning arrows are the main difficulty with Calypso. Again, the same as the Priests of Thunder, Calypso targets the last placed hero. So whoever you have down last is going to get absolutely destroyed by her single target arrows, including the flame arrows, which do multiple instances of damage, kind of like her seal stones on the normal hero. But the biggest threat is her lightning arrow, which will just obliterate almost any hero you have down. You really need the hero down to be a defender last, otherwise they'll die to the lightning arrow, and that defender needs to have some very good healers on them or have really good damage mitigation in order to survive this lightning arrow. So that covers the enemies pretty much. As for the placement strategy, while we're here and we can see the overview, you need to block these 2 lanes. There's 2 ways of doing this. Either you can put marksman across shooting. If you have a Lunaria or an Araka to boost your attack range on pierces, this works especially well. Or if you have long range marksmen or mages that do really, really good damage, then that can work as well. These guys don't have a great deal of resistance, so shooting across here works plenty fine. I used a Nightmare team and I had Abomination and Wrath Awakened 5, and I had them just tanking either side. This worked pretty good for me because they are just incredibly good at self-sustaining. Wrath is a Lord as well, so if you're using other fighters up here, such as Arrogance or Salazar, which are really, really good, then you're granting them some more attack speed, so that's useful. However, if you can get away with using Piercers, it is pretty good because they do have less costs, so it makes things less tight for you overall. There are a bunch of Piercers with around 12 to 13 cost, so I think the Piercer strategy, if you have one of the Piercer Lords to make it tidier and easier to reach across, I think that may be a slightly better strategy. It will also help with the spawns coming from up here. So either way, you need to deal with these two lanes. The other priority is there'll be spawners coming from here and from here. They are the Priests of Thunder. One will be walking across here, one will be walking across here. You need to kill both of these pretty quickly. Tanking the Priests of Thunder is not ideal. It's a lot of damage coming out, so I prefer to place someone here and someone around here and try to kill them as they're coming up to me. It's kind of tricky because you also need to deal with these guys flying in, and then of course you have to deal with Calypso. So I don't actually bother with this Rain Priest up here, I just ignore them, because if I'm killing the lightning ones early enough, then it doesn't matter, I'm just ignoring all the damage altogether. I am getting reduced resistance via the Rain Curse, so that's unfortunate, but a good enough defender, someone like Olag, Brokir, Baron, there's a whole bunch that will work. Regulus will be able to withstand the lightning arrows from Calypso, and I focus having 1 or 2 healers just on that person to make sure that they're up. So very quick summary there, that's the strategy I tend to adopt. I'm going to make a team now and then I'll talk you through exactly how I intend to place it. Okay, so this is the epic team I worked out that works for me. I'll go over each of the heroes and what they're really doing in this. The main standout heroes that really made this run work are Tariel here and Janquar. Janquar doesn't get a lot of love, but I personally really like this guy. His skill kit allows him to do some fantastic things. One of my favorite things about him is that he hits 2 enemies at a time. When his ultimate is active, he has a 2-tile range. He can hit 3 enemies, and when he blocks an enemy, they are cursed for 5 seconds. So he may not have self-sustain, but enemies can't hit him for 5 seconds. It makes him really good at blocking and murdering the enemies in the bottom corners. So yeah, these two are incredibly important. The reason Tariel is good is because I can place her up in this top left corner. She can deal with the spawn here reasonably fast, and with her ultimate she can actually kill the Priests of Rain up here. It seems to prioritize killing these guys. So she's fulfilling a lot of purposes all the way over here. Her ultimate is just super good. Almost all of these epics are at max awakenings. I think I'm missing 1 on the Estrid over here, and I'm missing 2 on Isolde. I don't actually place Isolde, so that doesn't really matter. I also didn't even place my Olag in the previous run. I tanked using Baron. So I'm going to do this run and walk you through how I do it using an epic only team. I wouldn't advise doing it with epics only. I just didn't want to use a legendary that outshone and did way too much heavy lifting by themselves. Okay, so first thing up, I'm going to place Tariel here facing down. It's a bit of a weird placement, but if I place her here, which I preferred to do, she will get killed by the flying ads, and it's not really what I was after. So she's going to die now, so I have to place down a support. So a 1 cost on Theowin is not too bad. Theowin doesn't even get struck. Now we do have an ad in the top right, and that is going to strike Theowin, so that's not too good. I can just about get down Estrid before he dies. However, I'm kind of okay with him dying, so I'm going to let him die. Well, I'll despawn him so I can get the cost points back, actually. So I'll despawn him for the cost points, and I'll place down my Estrid. A little bit messy, but it should be fine, I hope. And then I need to cover this side so I can place down Wrath. And because I despawned my Theowin, I got the points back. So that went quite well. And now I can ult if I want to get rid of this Rain Caller over here. And now I'm just waiting to cover the bottom right. So it is top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. That is the rotation of how these enemies spawn. See, Wrath just chewed those up with no problem. My Tariel finished the Rain Call at the top right, and now she's actually assisting in the bottom, so no issues whatsoever now. I've got everyone covered the way I wanted to, so that's good. Now I can chuck down a Vortex to make sure that my Estrid doesn't get killed when she blocks. I do have these guys coming up now, and I don't have my Theowin, but he's just spawning, so I can chuck him down. I'm going to wait a second, though, because otherwise he's going to get hit by these. So let's ult here to get a bit more damage out. And now we can chuck down Theowin. And now it's really coming up to the final part of the run in terms of placement order. So I drop down my Midan. She's about to take a bunch of damage. but I just about have enough time to get down my Baron. So, not too shabby. And there's this last guy here who's on the edge of range, but I just had enough, and I did have a bunch of range on Tariel still. So that's the placement. That's the placement order. Let me just quickly go over it. So first up, we have Tariel facing down to deal with the spawner here. She will die to the lightning strikes, so I have Fiorwin helping out a bit. I despawn him after that's killed, and I let him absorb a strike for Estrid first. Then I place Estrid to handle the right side, Wrath in the bottom left, then Jankro in the bottom right. These guys can handle this without any care in the world. Next, I need to get some healing on, otherwise Estrid is going to die. So I place down a Vortex. Then I have Airborne add spawning, so I drop down Fiorwin again as he's back up, facing up to help deal with the Airborne guys, but also to help deal with Calypso. A bit of passive extra damage there, but mainly to deal with the Airborne adds. Then I drop down Midan for my second healer, and then finally I drop down Baron. This placement is not the best, I'll be honest, because when there are the lightning coolers up, the lightning strikes on Baron will hit Vortex as well. So this isn't the tidiest, but I don't mind too much for the time being because Vortex is a HP scaling healer, so he's not in too much risk. And I'm going to try and get rid of these guys pretty quick. So there we go. There's one strike. He's doing okay. Now, let me just slow this down. I'm dealing with these guys, so the lightning coolers are done. But now you can notice that Calypso is on the move. And around in this area, you'll see her charge for a lightning arrow. She just gained her first Sealstone. I think it's around here, a little bit further. You'll see her cast her first lightning arrow. So these are the things you need to watch for and try and keep note of exactly when it happens if you're having trouble defending and tanking these, because they are incredibly hard hitting. So there we go. There's one coming up. I didn't shield that in time, so be mindful that one comes around here. I think there was one here that I missed. So there's a second one here, I believe. This guy is dead. These guys are being tanked and dealt with no problem. This one is being killed by Estrid, so that's all good. Bit of damage on Estrid there, but it was single target. Getting some nukes coming out on Baron, but no problems tanking that for the time being. And we do have the Rain Caller up here still, the Priest of Curse or whatever it's called. And my Tariel is not ready to shoot and deal with her, which is a pain, but that's okay. Now, Calypso's on the move again, and she will cast her lightning arrow on this level. I can't remember. I think it's halfway again, but I could be slightly wrong. You have to pay attention to where exactly it lands. So let's see. Once again, everything's spawning. I think the arrow's coming up soon, so I feel like I should preemptively ult, but I don't want to get the timing too wrong. I think it's around now, so I'm going to do it. Yeah, I got that one wrong, but that's okay. There's still a bit of time left. I'm slowing. There we go. There's the arrow, and it's blocked by the shield. So the timing was just about in there. We've dealt with the spawners on the left. The bottom corners are fine, and Tariel's ult has killed one Rain Caller. There were two stacked. So mine is pretty strong, my Tariel, and she's able to deal with both. Yours is probably not going to be able to if you're stuck on. This is Nightmare. I don't know how it scales on the lower difficulties, but with this team, it would be overkill on hard or normal. So you'll have to figure out exactly what works for you. This template is not perfect. So we have more spawns coming up. This one I can't deal with because I just used Tariel's ult to kill the other two. But as long as I can kill these two lightning callers, we should be okay. I'm going to pop some ults because there is a bunch of damage coming out. I believe there'll be another boss ult around here, though. My Fiorwin is massively slowing the boss, which is a bit of a difficulty. It makes it harder to predict, so you may want to use Brienne instead, or just another marksman if you have a better marksman. Silas would absolutely boss her. So let's see if we can... Okay, there's an arrow there. I don't know when it normally would be. I don't think it's here. I think it's around the midway point. Anyway, we now have 11 enemies left, including Calypso. 3 more coming in the bottom corners. We have this one up here. Ult again, so I can deal with this Rain Caller. This one has been chewed up by Estrid. The second Rain Caller is going down. Calypso is still moving across the map to get towards Baron. That one's dead. So now Calypso is being ganged up on by both Tariel and Fiorwin. Fiorwin's going to be out of reach soon. 59 out of 60. The run is practically over. And as you saw, I never placed Isolde nor Olag. But now I have a different problem, which is I don't have any DPS on Calypso. It's just Calypso fighting my tank, which is not ideal, right? It's not really what you want in this scenario. But I did bring 2 backup defenders. I did have 2 slots spare, so I will use them. So for this strategy, it's a bit wonky. It's not ideal, but this is the way I found that worked with epics. Again, you saw a heavy reliance on Tariel helping a lot, dealing with the rain crawlers, dealing with this side, just generally supporting on damage. And my Baron is really tanky. You do want to try to pay attention and keep note of when those lightning arrows are coming, because that's the best way to handle this. So the place where both my healers can reach is this tile here. So I'll need to place down some more DPS and quickly drop down a defender. So that should work. I got 2 DPS down on the boss. Oh no, she's still tanking him, so that's fine. I guess we'll see if she lightning strikes on Olag. But my defender, now that the defender is blocking Calypso, she is just shooting him for the time being. But we'll see if she uses a lightning arrow on Olag or not. But anyway, yeah, that is the run. That is the strategy that I'm using. It seems like once she is blocked, that's it. So you don't even need a second defender. You can just move your heroes about to get the DPS on Calypso at the end. And that's it. That's it for my epic-only team. I will use a stronger legendary team to show you how to do it with less heroes. So there we go. That's my fight record updated. I think it was wiped a while ago. And if you look at damage, Tariel doing a massive amount of work there. And then Estra doing a great job as well. I'll show you the stats of all my heroes at the end of the video, but this is going to be a bunch of different strategies, so we'll go over them individually. You can see for the expert difficulty, the final is getting 6 heroes. I actually only used 8 out of 10, but that's still too much. So this strategy won't work for that difficulty. If you're trying to get expert difficulty, you don't want to use, obviously, just epics. So this is trying to show you some heroes that might help your run out and the general strategy. I'm going to now show you a much stronger team and how I would choose to do this run normally. Okay, so now time for the 6-man team on expert difficulty. That way you can get the full 3 stars. Initially, the team I used was this. I took 4 Nightmare Fighters and I took Elwyn and Olag. This was the team I demoed in my first attempt just now. And it almost worked absolutely perfectly. Points if you can guess the problem. So the problem is Salazar decimates the left. They stand no chance. He instant kills them as soon as they leave the portal. Arrogance is here facing left. When they walk up behind him, he turns around and just slaps them to death. And he handles all of the airborne spawns as well. He's that strong. I have Abomination here first to give him more time to build his ultimate charges up. And Wrath down here. So that's the 4 corners taken care of. I have Elwyn here healing down and Olag here. When Calypso zigzags around the map and eventually ends up in front of Olag, Arrogance is still in range and he massacres her. And that's that. It's super clean, super easy. However, there was one problem. The Priests of Rain are sitting up here, and there are no melee tiles anywhere near it, so you're unable to kill them. So be very mindful of that if you try the same thing. You do need at least 1 range damage hero to place on this tile right here, otherwise you just can't beat them. So as much as it pains me, I dropped Salazar out of the team, and I brought Hex in instead. So I'll show you exactly how that works out. So you no more than 6 heroes in your team, not placed in your team. So you can't even have them in the roster, even if you don't use them. So the great thing about Hex is he costs 12, so that's fantastic. And as you'll see, he can just negate the first attack every now and then. So he's gets hit, no damage. He uses his passive up, now he's invisible. And he's just shooting, and he kills that one right there. He gets shot again, so he's wounded, but it doesn't really matter. Arrogance is down now, so Arrogance is getting hit, which I'm not overly fond of. So I'll have to drop down a healer a little bit sooner than I'd like. He did manage to get the hit anyway, but I was just getting a bit jittery, you know. So better safe than sorry. And now I can drop down my Abomination to deal with the bottom left. And that guy goes down fine. You probably don't need to put Elwyn down then. I just did it because I was a little bit concerned with how that was going. And now I can place down my Wrath in the bottom right corner. He chops them up easily. And now I just need to place down Olag. So you can see these are the airborne guys. This is the slightly tricky part. But as you can see, no difficulty for Arrogance. Hex also obliterates the left spawn. Do get some strikes on Olag, but Olag won't really care. I could have used Broke here, but I thought I'll use 2 epics out of 6 because then it looks a little bit better, you know? So now we have Calypso spawning. The first lightning strike will be here. About now. now. There we go, in between these two tiles. And the second one will be around about here. This time I don't have fear in slowing it down, so I can keep track of where the lightning strikes are, so that's nice. And the rest of the run's pretty passive, to be honest. I don't really need to do a lot. Maybe I'll turn on Hex's ult every now and then just to make sure these guys die faster. And that's it, really. You can kind of just hands off and let it complete. At least with this team, with these heroes in this gear. You obviously have to figure out the strategies that work for you. Expert mode with 6 heroes is pretty tricky. So, yeah. And the second arrow is about there as well. So 1, 2, and we'll see. I think the third one is about here, but I could be a bit off. We'll see. Another thing I love about using Elwyn is the rage regen is getting my ult up on arrogance faster, and I can heal this tile or these tiles if things start to go wrong, but there's no chance of that happening. Considering I did this with epics, these guys can definitely slaughter Abomination. So ult on Hex just to kill this sooner. Again, Hex pauses because he loves to take forever to fire his bow. Some massive damage coming out. Okay, the next arrow is here, so the third one is here. So 1, 2, 3. Guy gets massacred. You can see all of these stacks of the priests here, reducing my resistance and hiding from my fighters. But that's pretty much the run. 37 out of 60 enemies. We have 2 more coming in here. We have another 6 coming from the bottom. And yeah, easily done. Now Calypso is finally sitting in Arrogance's range, so she's completely toast. And Calypso goes down. And this is the final wave of the mission. So Hex is just going to eviscerate these enemies here. Bang, that one's dead. Arrogance kills those. The bottom left corners are done. And that's it, success. Now I just need to despawn my Hex, wait a minute, and then kill these last 6 guys that are just going crazy, having a little silent disco over there. So yeah, I'll skip to when he's available a place and he'll just mop up and finish. Alright, there we go. So Hex is back up. Now I can replace him and just let him kill these guys. It's slightly annoying that you have to do this, but it's not a big deal. You're only going to clear this one time, right? So it's not the end of the world. So there we go. 2 of them are down. 4 more to go. 3 down, 3 to go. And yeah, there we have it. That is my guide for the final boss of Chapter 8. The gist of it is controlling the 4 corners and then tanking in the middle. Your defenders likely will need to be more active than mine were. Mine are pretty geared, so I can get away with just relying on their innate tankiness to soak the lightning arrows. When I first beat it, I was really struggling to keep the defenders alive. Definitely focus on using the right kinds of defenders. I did it with Captain Reeve because that was the legendary I had at the time. I didn't actually have Baron nor Olag. And with Captain Reeve, it was very difficult to soak the lightning strikes. So I had to really precisely time it. I had to re-gear him to just give him enough health. And then he would die to attacks that immediately followed. So I had to save Elowin's ult and Elowin's Wood Elf to stack to keep Reeve alive. So you may need to be a lot more active in surviving the lightning arrows from Calypso. Just be very careful and mindful of that. But yes, that is the video. That's the guide on how to clear this. Just quickly to talk about the strategies involved. You have pretty much a choice. Either you're going to use Araka/Lunaria for a Piercer Lord, Faction Lord bonus for the extra attack range and extra damage, and perhaps with a good marksman, you can kill these guys on the left and right from the center. Or you can use self-sustaining fighters such as Wrath and Abomination, or you can use someone like Janquar in pretty good gear, ideally, and he can have 5 seconds of Curse to kill the enemies in, and he's cleaving. So I think Janquar is a very good option. I actually get quite a lot of use out of him because he's quite a niche fighter. He has some interesting capabilities. So those are my go-to picks. I did try it using some North heroes, such as Voroth and Estrid, and it worked fairly well, but it just felt a bit inconsistent. It felt a bit sketchy. You were relying on the passive North Lord shield procs, and it's not very good. So definitely either Nightmare self-sustained fighters or Janquar, or use Pierces at range, or find a way to use Volker as well, as she does grant lifesteal to her party. So Volker could make it work a lot better, but she's kind of expensive, and I find this a bit tight in placement. So that's to deal with these guys. As for the top side, you kind of have a choice between nuking it to bits using some kind of really aggressive fighters like Salazar, Arrogance. These guys are just really good. Arrogance is great. Zilla 2 would function exactly the same as well, because they can hit across and deal with the airborne, which makes it a lot easier on your run. Tariel is great as well. She has great single target damage, and her ultimate makes her very versatile and very usable just generally. She'll help across the whole map. So I think Tariel is a great pick if you don't have a very, very deep roster to pick from. And then for your healer, it doesn't really matter too much HP healers are nice because they're tankier. Eloin is the GOAT, so I always like using Eloin. Just make sure that if you do have these Acid Priest Saliva, and even if you're trying to kill them like I did with the Epic team, try to make sure your tank is not sitting next to a healer as I did in my run. That was kind of sloppy for me. There's probably a better placement I can figure out. That's kind of it for how that positioning works. The other thing to keep in mind is Calypso's lightning arrow shots. So there's one around here, there's another around here, there's one around here, and I think there's another one on this bottom row. But be very mindful of that if your tank is having trouble soaking those. Just pay attention to when those lightning strikes are coming. And again, remember, it is targeting the last placed hero. However, when Calypso is actually fully blocked by someone, it seems she does focus that target. So there are a few things to keep in mind. There are a bunch of different viable strategies. There's definitely going to be some unique strategies that I haven't shown that people have. So if you do have a different strategy and you think it might be interesting or maybe help someone, then please leave a comment with some basic detail below, because it might help other people who don't have access to the heroes and the strategies I've shown in this video. So yeah, that is it. That's my guide for Chapter 8, Mission 13/14, depending on the difficulty. I hope it helps you guys out. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a lovely day. Take care and bye-bye.